the gloom. In that house, shadows consume.
Hello and good evening out there in podcast land. This is your host, the Midnight Hunter, also known as Dr. Dennis Carroll. Welcome aboard, all of you, and get ready because there's another episode of Hunting the Shadows headed your way right now. I want to welcome everybody on board. Got a special guest back there waiting in the entry room of the studio. We'll bring him on shortly. I just want to give a shout out to everybody, say hello, and good to have you on board tonight. Hello, Kyle, Wizard Moon, Shiro, and Annette, and Blue Eyed Bandit. And let's see who else we got coming on board here. We got, let's see, it's moving a little bit slow tonight. If it's not fast, it's slow. That's the way it usually goes. But anyway, there's my brother, Midwest Night Watchers. Hello, Mr. Gerald Fountain. Welcome in the room, sir. Yeah, we've got an interesting show ahead for you tonight. My guest and I will be discussing interdimensional vampires and other things, other monsters as well that are definitely interdimensional. We're going to get into that tonight. I want to tell you, folks, it has been quite a day, has it not? It's been a very dark day, absolutely. Another one of those days when it seems like the lights of the world dim. The great conservative speaker, Charlie Kirk, was, I'm going to say, assassinated. He was killed earlier today at the University of Utah. I haven't got all the particulars on it yet. I don't know if they captured the shooter or if he's still at large or whatever's going on with that. I haven't had a chance to check. But it's been a terrible day, definitely. You know, folks, I want to tell you something. We're going to talk a little bit more about this later on in the program. But what is going on with the world filled with so much hate, you know? It's just awful when you think about it. It's why can't we have brotherhood and sisterhood here, you know? Why are we doing this to each other? I mean, let me just say this for the record. You know, you're not going to agree with everything I say, and I'm not going to agree with everything you say. That's just the way it goes. But we don't have to kill each other because of it. You know, that's the good part about that, you know. And I'm going to tell you something. If you profess to be a Christian and you don't have love in your heart, you're not what you say you are. Okay, you're definitely not. And so you might want to look up that definition. That's all I'll say about that. But you know, I'm trying not to be judgmental about this. But my gosh, some people need to be woke up here a little bit or something. I don't know what's going on with that. But once upon a time in America, we could agree to disagree. And I would defend to the death your right to say whatever it was you wanted to say, because that's what being an American is all about. But evidently we've lost that somewhere down the line. I don't know what's going on with that, you know, but I'm just as much in the dark about it as you are. But it's the times we're living in, you know. It's like the scripture says, in the days of Noah, they are back with us again and worse than they were before, I believe. I believe we're outdoing the days of Noah, definitely. Whether we realize that or not. But anyway, we'll talk some more about that later on. But definitely, I'm going to tell you, folks, you got to put some love in your heart. Like that old song, you need a little love in your heart, okay? And we all need that, you know. And I'm including myself in with that as well, you know. We all need a little love in our hearts here, okay, for our fellow man. And when you look at your fellow man or woman, as the case may be, I don't see what color they are. I don't see where they come from. I don't see what religion they are. I don't see what persuasion they are. Whatever the situation, I see another child of God. That's what I see. Somebody that's due respect because of that very reason alone, you know? But I'm not going to get on the soapbox tonight, all right? But I mean, that's just my personal feeling on it. And I think we're losing that somewhere back along the way. We're gonna have to watch that and be very careful about it. Absolutely. But it's been a bad day. It's been a bad week, and that poor girl that was killed indiscriminately on in Charlotte. It's just terrible stuff going on, folks. Absolutely, and we need to get ready because, hey, it's not going to get better. You know, it's like my good friend Jessica always says: we don't want to live in fear. Well, and I don't want to talk fear. I want to talk faith. You know, but we gotta realize what's going on around us and be ready for it. And we need, there's a big difference between being fearful and being aware of what's going on. There's a big difference, and we need to work on it. Absolutely. But anyway, I appreciate you all being here tonight, listening to the old man ramble on here. But I'm gonna bring my guest up here in just a minute. We're gonna get deep into some very interesting stuff here. But I appreciate you all, each and every single one of you. The shadow wolves are in the house, so evil better watch out now. Okay, there you go. Absolutely. And I'm glad that we've got some shadow wolves in here. And that makes you extraordinarily special people. Okay, in my book, anyway. But moving along, I'm going to bring on my good buddy and friend, Mister Bigfoot Dwarf. There
Good
he is.
evening,
Hello,
Doc.
sir.
How
All
you doing,
right.
sir?
How's everything going, my friend?
Oh, not bad. I'll say I mentioned that to Gerald earlier today in a text message, but no, great introduction. Very, you weren't rambling on there. I think it's very important that you express yourself and that we have uh, the right to do that. And but no, it just shows that yeah, I was very aware of what happened earlier today, and condolences to the family. And yeah, no, it's a total bummer. And yeah, no, we should be able to speak and exercise our rights. But yeah, no, it just shows the state of the world. And as of late, living in the city here, uh, here in Los Angeles, yeah, it's always been crazy here, but they've definitely
Hey,
turned it up a few notches. And we hear about it, especially with social media and everything. But I see it firsthand here, and sometimes we follow these speed chases that happen live. And last night we actually had a couple, and one was near me, and so I went live for a little bit. But yeah, no, it just for me, we're gonna get into some things tonight, but I think it definitely goes hand in hand with what we're talking about now, and the state of people's minds and their actions and what's happening here. We talk about spiritual warfare. I think that's definitely real. And for example, today, I think that was definitely, when people play out acts like that in real life, I think there is other entities and beings at hand as well. A lot of times the human is used as a host, and that's why you have a lot of this madness going on, I believe, because you have a lot of these again, these entities, spirits, beings, creatures roaming the earth now. Like you said, like they say, the days of Noah. That's it. For me, I see it like that. With the crime and the stuff that's going on with just people, our people, not to mention uh, these creatures that we're also into. And yeah, no. So when we're show, when I see the news and I hear about things, especially locally here, and it's a reminder to me of the state of mind a lot of people are in, and also it reflects on, I guess, the collective as well. And yeah, so we're gonna break some of those walls down, and so I'm excited to be on. I appreciate the invite. Actually, I'm gonna rewind a little bit. There was a few shows back where I had mentioned something, on your live there, and it was a reference to cannabis and how. And I was making a joke out of it, but sometimes with text messages and stuff like that, it could be taken the wrong way, or sometimes who knows? There isn't much information behind the actual message there. But anyway, there was no issues, no problems with the doc here. We sent each other messages right after that and make sure that we were all on good terms. And yeah, it's all good and nothing but love here. So love you, doc, and love everyone out there.
well, that's all it's all about. Love will always make a way. It's supposed to anyway. But I found out recently though, BD, that people can take things the wrong way, and you don't really mean it. You're not. You can you know, maybe say the wrong thing and they take it wrong. I wrote something not long ago. I like to post and I think I get in trouble posting stuff on Facebook too sometimes. But as a writer, I like to try to express myself, and I try to get tell people, hey, maybe I'm not really talking about you. I'm just expressing myself that way as a writer. Just putting out ideas or maybe a part of a script I'm working on, whatever the situation. But I've had to realize that definitely here lately, my friend, that some people just, they see it the wrong way. I wrote this not long ago. I said, I say what I mean and I mean what I say, but it's your job to understand it correctly. That's all I can do. You know, if you don't take it the right way, I'm sorry. I don't mean, I've never went out of the way. I don't think I can remember one time. I'm not trying to make myself out to be anything special here, but I've never really went out of my way that I can think of in my life to insult anybody, or try to purposely disrespect somebody,
Yeah.
But I live by that motto that I won't be wronged, I won't be insulted, I won't be laid a hand on. I don't do these things to other people, and I expect the same from them. That's really comes down to the golden rule. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, I like golden rules, and there was something else. Oh yeah, I was going to mention since you were talking about that. That also uh, uh, is that if people get offended by something you post or whatever, that means they have an issue as well. So they got something to work out within them, and unfortunately, a lot of people don't know how to deal with stuff like that. I guess people call the inner work and dealing with the self. And
Mhm.
I'm learning more and more about that and just how to go about situations, even with family members, day to day stuff. My nieces, nephews, my brother, and there's a lot of processing, and I thank goodness, I thank God. Uh, these days for the understanding and overstanding of how to process certain things, because I before had learned some of this stuff. I was going about it the whole wrong way, and the way I would project things or even act out certain ways and do certain things, certain actions, and the way I would do it, and the feelings, and it was all just a lot of confusion and stuff like that. But now that I have little more understanding of things, I'm able to process stuff and really be on a different level with people, myself, and the Almighty
Mhm.
as well. So it's an amazing thing. I
No
love
doubt.
it. And here we are learning the school of life day by day. Getting some siren action back there. uh, yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's an
I
exciting
hear those a
time.
lot too. I think I'm on the path where some of those ambulances and stuff come by. But I agree 100% with what you're saying, my friend. I'll tell you something else. That's really, you hit the nail on the head there with that, because in the end, we really got no answer to but God for what we do, really. That's who it counts with anyway, definitely. But, I don't know. Here's the thing that really bothers me about that. Some people have no mercy. Some people have no tact for forgiveness. If I've ever done anything to anybody, I'm certainly big enough of a man to tell them, hey, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do it, but you need to be big enough to forgive me and have a little mercy. If you don't, some people are so ready, BD, to counsel you out. It's like you don't exist anymore. You know what I'm saying? They just ready to boom. You don't, and that kind of shows that maybe they don't consider you a fellow human being or something. I don't know what's going on there. What do you think about that?
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, it's very scary because you don't know, and not that we need to trust people, but it is nice to be able to trust people and stuff, but it's more difficult nowadays. And yeah, you never know a person's state of mind, where they're at with things, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot tougher these days. We got to be really careful. But yeah, I think also if yeah, you're doing that work that we're talking about earlier, you're going to be attracting the proper people, the proper situations as well. So you got to get ready to uh deal with that as well, accept that, and Yeah, that's
Yeah,
also more of the work that we're talking about here. And yeah, I think as we move forward, it seems like more and more of these exercises, I'm getting more into it, and I see other people around me also doing it, which is super cool. Um,
that's true.
yeah, no, it's going to be needed a lot more, especially with how things are panning out these days. So
I don't like the part where they try to counsel you out with a bullet.
yeah,
that, you
and
got
that's
people doing that now. I mean, this is crazy.
hmm
I don't know. I think it shows definitely, my friend. It shows that the state of evil in this world is definitely increasing. Hatred is becoming more. We talked about that last show we did. You and me, we talked about that. How they want to pigeonhole you racially or religiously or whatever, however they want to do it, because that's their form of control. They want to turn us against each other and divide us up because that's the best way to control you. You know.
yeah, divide and
Uh,
conquer.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
So it's a
and so
trick. We got to watch out for that
yeah,
because
and I think this
that stuff's
conversation
happening on
here.
purpose here. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
this is perfect conversation too, because we could segue right into what we're going to be talking about. Because honestly, I didn't do any homework. I was just like, all right, let's freestyle this. When I heard interdimensional vampires, I was like, whoa, all right, this is
Oh
going to be
yeah.
a tough one. So I'm ready for you, Doc. And yeah, off the top of my head, there's a few things that I could maybe tap on
Well,
related to the topic. So
the interdimensional vampires. The reason I kind of picked that out is because you're kind of close to Mount Shasta, you know,
uh oh,
and you've done some research on Mount Shasta, and there's
uh
supposed to
oh.
be some connection with interdimensional stuff going on. Definitely with Mount Shasta.
Okay,
And
so you hit
if
it
I
right on.
ever go get on the West Coast, me and you are definitely going to Mount Shasta. Okay,
Oh yeah, no,
we're
let's
gonna
do
hit
it.
that place up first off. Yeah.
Let's
But
do it.
what have you heard about that around consider connected with Mount
So,
Shasta, man?
so you hit it right on the head, and I don't know if we're gonna see here if we hit the bullseye, but I was thinking, darn, what sort of interdimensional vampiric stuff do I know about? And
Hmm.
one of the ones that came to mind is that of Mount Shasta, and I was like, oh, here we go. Is the Count of Saint Germain? And so there's
Oh
legends,
yeah.
there's stories of the
Mhm.
count and him appearing throughout the mountain there. And people have talked about, I guess he would be dressed a certain way, looked a certain way, and
Well, I definitely
what
would love to meet him, BD. Definitely, I'd like to talk to him for a while. But
well,
yeah,
they say
that is a big thing with Mount Shasta, and what I want to get your spin on that. What do you think about what have you ever thought about Count Saint Germain? I mean, what do you think? Do you think he's a vampire, or you think he's the Wandering Jew, or some people claim him to be, or some people
wow,
also claim he may be Judas Iscariot because he never
wow,
died or something?
yeah.
What do you think? What's your spin on that?
Well, from what I've heard is that it was possibly from dabbling with alchemy that he got this extension to his life, and some legends say because of that, there was some sort of ties to like vampires and stuff. Um, and so, yeah, it makes me wonder. But yeah, no, interesting when you get into the whole alchemy. I know very little of that stuff, but I've heard of people who have dabbled
Yeah.
with the alchemy and yeah, you get into some interesting can of worms there, and it's not all good. And so yeah, also there's talks about the count when he appears to people having this milky white substance, which I don't know, it sounds a little weird to me. And he'll offer it for you to drink, and then that is supposed to, I guess, maybe extend
Well,
your
here's the
life, maybe some.
interesting thing about that, BD.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Nobody ever seen him eat. Remember that? They never saw him actually eating food. Okay, and he would drink a little wine once in a while. I think that was it. So that might leave him out as being a vampire because they don't usually drink wine. So I hear. I mean, anyway, if he was living on this stuff, he wouldn't need this. He wouldn't need food like you and I. To exist. And he was a medieval alchemist. I'll tell you somebody else. Well, I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna throw something fun in here for you right quick here. I was telling my good friend Gerald about this. Um, you ever heard of Dr. John Dee, the very famous medieval alchemist? He was just about as famous as Saint Germain. Okay,
Wow.
John Dee. John Dee was an occult scientist. In other words, he was dabbling in the occult, doing all kinds of wild stuff. But John Dee, that's spelled D-E-E, folks, D-E-E. John Dee also was a spy for the Queen of England. And guess how he would always sign his secret dispatches? He always had a code name. Guess what his code name was? 007.
Okay.
How you know where that comes from? Okay.
Trip out. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're starting to maybe ring some bells here. Um, yeah, and it's interesting how sometimes it seems to be like a lot of these high-ranking occultists seem to be
Mhm.
tied to, you know, like you mentioned
Well, that
here,
was the number one thing.
the crown.
Besides turning stuff into gold, the number one thing was the philosopher's stone. The one thing that would make you live forever. So you think Saint Germain may have found that? Is that right?
I wouldn't be surprised if he did. And yeah, and then what interests me also is why would he be appearing on Mount Shasta? I've heard there was other places. I think it was Narlands where he was making appearances and other places, I believe. But yeah, yeah, Mount Shasta is well known. It's
Mhm.
some believe I think it might be like a chakra point on the earth as well, and a lot of people into spirituality and the New Age, head up that way, and for various reasons, and it seems to attract a lot of the interesting people. And so there's definitely something going on there. It's part of the Cascade Range. It's a volcano, and so just so much history and lore from there. Everything from little people to fairies nearby and some of the areas there, and it's got it all. Bigfoot and the Lemurians, different ET type races, UFOs. It's like Shasta is like
Well, I believe
the Disneyland of paranormal and cryptids.
I believe that there are places like that, BD, on this planet that I like to call them interdimensional intersections. There may be places where this occur, like Mount Shasta and something like the Bermuda Triangle. And the list goes on and on. They're all the way around the world. I think Gerald and I were talking about that the other night as well. They completely circumvent this planet. These certain places where these things can happen, and Mount Shasta definitely would be on that list, considering that. But here's something else that you will find that's an interesting tie-in. Since we're talking about alchemists and occult scientists, and by the way, that's a real snarky way to say sorcerer, folks. Okay, occult scientist is actually how you say sorcerer in the old language. But anyway, um, they were very interested in something else, not just turning gold and making stuff out of gold or living forever. They were also, guess what? They were interested in opening interdimensional doorways. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Look
Very
at Aleister
interesting.
Crowley. He was big into that.
Yep.
Look at Jack Parsons. He was big into that.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
definitely Saint Germain would have probably been definitely into that as well.
Hmm. And also going back into like the process of weren't they turning like poop into gold or something like that?
Hmm. Yeah,
I think it was
yeah, they would turn like iron or something,
iron. Yes, that
they
as
had
well.
in the
Yeah, I've heard
gold,
some very
or
strange.
diamonds. They also were looking how to make diamonds, rubies, and stuff
Okay.
like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Um, Yeah, no, it gets deep and then it gets dark. It seems like with this
yeah.
alchemy, very bizarre. I've heard some really strange things having to do with alchemy, but yeah, I think it's important to know about it and be aware. And so I don't know. Have there been some like positive aspects out of alchemy that you know of besides
Yeah,
these
well, it
like
was,
dark occultist
a lot of
practices?
people think. A lot of people, BD, when you say alchemy, they think about witchcraft. So really, it was not witchcraft. Really, it was sort of like, the beginning of chemistry and science itself. But it was just dealing with some very strange subjects, like, living forever and all these other things. But they were taking it sort of, more like a scientific view on it than witchcraft type thing, let me tell you something about witchcraft, okay? And here's something we all need to remember about witchcraft. Witchcraft is simply changing, manipulating reality. And here's what I say about it. When you cast hexes and spells, what you are doing is you're manipulating reality in order to prop up a lie, usually. That's what you're doing. It has a lot to do with something that's not really true, in some aspects. You're trying to make it true, in other words. So you're trying to make a lie into a truth, in a way. That's just kind of a weird skew on witchcraft, folks, okay? That's what a lot of it's about. But they were trying to do that too in that way. They were trying to manipulate reality as well, but they weren't using magic to do it. They were using chemistry and chemicals and stuff like that, and they were looking for not spells and hexes, but formulas, And when you look at a more modern day person like that, guess who comes to mind? Tesla. He was very much like that. And we were doing a show the other night, by the way, folks. You missed it. You have to go check out the last episode of Road Less Traveled. We did a thing on pursuit of pyramids. Tesla was absolutely fascinated by pyramids, BD. He was fascinated by. He thought that they were a way to channel and move wireless energy. And when you look at a pyramid, you could say, yeah, I can see where he's getting that at. I can see where he's coming from on that.
Oh,
but
yeah.
he
No,
was
I see.
fascinated by that. He had plans to make his own pyramid, by the way. To fool
Yeah, no,
around with this.
makes me think
Yeah.
of the Luxor in Las Vegas. How much energy and currency they're bringing in through there, and who knows
Yeah.
what else they might be dragging into that place.
Well,
But yeah,
even
the pyramid.
Michael Jackson slept under a pyramid. Did you know that? He had a bedroom was designed with like a pyramid roof ceiling like on it, and he
Oh,
thought
I
that
wouldn't
you
doubt.
would live longer. He thought you could live longer sleeping in a pyramid. Guess what? This is weird stuff, folks. Guess who's got a tomb when he passes away? He's going to be buried in New Orleans in a pyramid. Nicolas Cage.
Oh yeah, yeah. No,
I met him
Jessica
one
Jones
time, by
is.
the way. I met him one time. He's a nice guy. Anyway, that's crazy to think about. Are you going to come back if you're buried in a pyramid or what? That's
Yeah.
really wild.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jessica Jones has mentioned as Nicolas Cage possibly being a vampire or something like that, and some of
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
older pictures of people
Yeah, I
that
did a
look
show
like
with her
him.
on that one time.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember that. And actually, my oldest sister is a big fan of Nicolas Cage. And when we lived in
Oh, yeah.
Hollywood, she actually ran into him at the corner gas station there, so she got to meet him. And so that
Well, he
was
was a
pretty
real nice
cool.
guy. That was when I met him when he was married to Lisa Marie, And I just met him out. Well, it was about that time that Con Air had come out. You remember Con Air? That was a great movie, by the way. And I told him, I said, Mr. Cage, I really enjoyed it in that movie. He did a fantastic job in that movie. But all he wanted to talk about was comic books. He was a comic book collector, and he was asking me, you collect comic books? I said, well, I got a few comic books, I got around there. So you got this one or something? I said, no, I don't collect them. I'm afraid I don't,
Right
know
on.
too much about the rare ones, But
Yeah, no,
he
that's
was
cool.
a real. He was. I'm gonna tell you this. Though. He was a real kind of a down to earth person, but he's strange though. There was some kind of strange thing about him. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it, but he gave me some strange vibes. Now, whether he's a vampire or not, I don't know. But
Yeah, I think
uh,
it probably has to do with, a lot of these actors kind of have that aura about them, something
yeah,
strange about them. You never know. But
yeah.
yeah, no, that's cool. I've enjoyed him in several
I
movies,
should have.
and
I should have had my mirror with me. I should have whipped that mirror out right quick and make sure.
there you go.
See if I can
Um,
see it reflected. But
yeah,
anyway,
but
he was
but
nice though. I mean, I didn't talk to him for just a minute. It was just, real quick. Well, he was real nice, yeah. But
That's cool.
she wasn't. She was kind of stuck up. She wouldn't even speak at them. She was kind of stuck up. But he was like, yeah,
Um, yeah. So other than let's see. So we're talking actors now and vampires. One person that came to mind with the topic of like vampires and stuff. I was trying to think of some actors also that I knew of, and one that came to mind was Johnny Depp, who's actually played in several
oh yeah,
roles where I think he's been a vampire. There was one
yeah.
old one. It's a Ed Wood. I think there's two movies that he plays like having to do with vampires that were
Mm-hmm.
Tim Burton films, if I'm not mistaken. But
Did
anyway,
Barnabas
one,
Collins in Dark Shadows? The Dark
yeah,
Shadows movie.
exact, yep,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah,
And then so that came to mind, and then also what was it? Ed Wood, where he I think Bela Lugosi,
yeah.
he plays in that movie with him. And little Bella Lugosi, I don't know, did we talk about this? But growing up in Hollywood, we used to get this hearse that would pull up on our block. And eventually,
Yeah,
many years later, I found out that it's from the Hollywood Death Tour Museums. But I never knew why they would stop on our
yeah.
block
I've
there.
heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was because I found out eventually because of Instagram recently, actually, that the Death Museum would stop there because Bela Lugosi actually lived in the buildings next to where I grew
Mm.
up.
Ah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so way back in the day when Bela Lugosi was around Hollywood, that's where I guess, one of the places he lived, and that's why they stopped the tour there. So I was like, oh wow, trip out. I never knew until now. So little vampire connection, Hollywood connection there. But yeah, Johnny Depp has played a couple roles that had my interest, and then there's some other roles where he's played almost. There's this like a reptilian reptile
Mm-hmm.
vibes. I've been talking
Oh
about the
yeah.
movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas a whole lot. The Hunter Thompson, he plays Hunter Thompson, and yeah, there's reptilian references there. There's the whole. I've been calling it the Google Chrome. I don't know if that was a word, but I put that in the chat once, and I hear Jessica saying it now. So I don't know if we came up with that, but the Google
Mm-hmm.
Chrome that people talk about drinking and stuff. They show that in that movie, and they show reptiles. And actually, in the beginning of the movie, when they're driving from California to Vegas, and they're under the influence of some psychedelics, they start seeing these bats coming all over the place, and that kind of reminded me of vampires for some reason, the little vampire hint there. But yeah, you can look at some of these actors and some of these actors in real life too. Who was it? Angelina Jolie, you've brought up before, I think, in some of the past shows with Billy Bob with
Oh yeah.
They used to
Billy
share
Bob Thornton. Yeah, he
the
was kind of
vial of
strange.
blood,
Yeah.
and oh
Yeah.
yeah, and you
Hey,
hear
let me tell
about
you something right quick. Actually, I think I was 2 months old when Bela Lugosi died. So there you go, folks. I can't be his reincarnation. Okay.
wow.
Anyway, I was. That's how far back I go. I remember he was always will be Dracula to me. I mean, that's just that's where he always. But his career at the very end was kind of sad in a way. He had a lot of drug problems and all that. He had to go into rehab, I think, and all that. The thing about Bela, he kind of, I don't know, he was, I believe he was always kind of jealous of Boris Karloff a little bit. I think there was some rivalry going on there, with that. But he kind of was sad there towards the end, definitely when Ed Wood knew him and all that stuff, putting him in his movies and all. If you want to call those movies, I guess. But anyway, that was the interesting thing about it. But when you think about that, though, BD, and that's what our focus tonight is on the interdimensional type things. There's some things that when you see them, just like the pyramids I mentioned the other night, they don't seem like they belong here. They just don't. They seem like they've come from somewhere else, or the ideal for them comes from somewhere else, or whatever the situation. So it is with people, some of these things that supposedly these cryptids who are looking for, to me, just don't seem to really belong here in some ways. And you have to wonder about that to a certain extent, where could they have possibly originated at? And of course, I've talked about that biblically before with the Nephilim and all that kind of stuff. But what if some of these things that we're looking at, and that includes vampires, are interdimensional? They're from somewhere else. Because, like we talked about just a few minutes ago, some of these guys, that includes the alchemists, that includes the Satanists and all these other guys, they're opening these doorways. Now, as a doctor of metaphysics, that's one thing I've spent my life studying how the unseen aspects of this universe affect the seen things, the things that we can see and the physical aspects of all this stuff around us, how these things affect that. And you got to look at it that way that some of these creatures, some of these things that we pursue or talk about and do shows like this about, where do they really, really originate from? You got to wonder about some of this stuff. Could they be definitely interdimensional? Could they be coming from some of these dark spiritual doorways and all that? And I believe there's a definite tie there. I'm going to get your spin on it. What do you think? I think there's a definite,
Yeah,
smoke there, definitely.
yeah, yeah. You hear more talks about like what is it? Sex, psychic vampires, energetic vampires, which also with the reptilian, you get that as well. That these beings not only could be like a physical form, but an energetic form, and could
Mhm.
possess people, and through various ways. So I believe that it's very similar for me, the vampire and the reptilian stuff, a lot of it is very similar, the way that the energetic. And so when we're talking energies and stuff, I think that's where you could throw in these dimensions, different
That's
dimensions,
a good
different.
point.
Uh-huh.
That's a great point. And you know what? Somebody mentioned to me the other day. That's I like it when people hit on stuff like this. If reptilians do exist, it would not surprise me if they were not vampires. Think about that a minute, folks. That's wild to think about. The reptilians. What if because they're very parasitic? They're like living off of us, and if they're not eating us, they could definitely be what drinking our what blood. You know,
Yep.
what do you
Exactly.
think?
So there's that, the drinking of these bodily fluids, whether it be blood or the G chrome. Yeah, it's weird, but I think it's very real though, that because I see it once again with people that I interact with, here in real life. You see it on social media, the way people are acting and stuff, and yeah, so those things come in, and even within oneself, when we're dealing with the self again, dealing with the ego and these different emotions and things. I think the way you
Mm,
deal with these things uh, could affect whether or not you let these entities in or not, and even partaking in certain things. Once again, we've talked about what is it, like substances, alcohol, drugs, and stuff like that could be gateways to things like that. Being
yeah.
in certain areas, that have these beings and spirits around,
Yeah.
you get these attachments and hitchhikers and stuff like that. So I do believe that things can cling on to you like that without you knowing. And yeah, so it's
Mhm.
good to be aware of these types of things so you could recognize the issue or a problem if you tend to run into one.
And
So
something there, BD. I'll tell you something else that kind of you hit another nail on the head there. When it comes to blood, I think there are spiritual properties to blood, not just physical properties of blood. The Bible says blood is the life. You know,
yep,
and a lot of these vampires are what we, like you just said, they're energy type vampires. Some of them they're sucking life out of you. Maybe they're not taking your blood, but they're sucking the very life essence out of you, your soul, or whatever, however you want to put it. I have encountered those. I know that they do exist and they do operate that way. And I believe without a doubt that blood has spiritual properties as well. And I think that's why they're attracted to it so much. Not
I
just the
agree.
reptilians, vampires, and all. Some of these other type, entities are attracted to that blood for that reason. I think it's almost like a narcotic for them in some
Oh
ways.
yeah, yeah,
You know, like a
and
cocaine habit.
and that's why
Yeah.
I'll refer back to once again the movie Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Man, I want to do a breakdown of that movie, and I've done little brief breakdowns of it, but there's so
Mhm.
much there that we've been touching on lately. And yeah, the consumption of these substances and the way they obtained it. Yeah, it's very, very fascinating, and it's hitting on all these points that we're touching on here tonight. And
Well,
yeah,
that's
there's
why I
other movies.
warn people. That's why I
What?
warn people about the properties of alcohol and certain drugs and all that. They're big. That's big. That's a big part of witchcraft, folks. By the way, you can use these things if you're not careful to open doorways. You can use it to open yourself to certain influences. That's what you have to be so careful in misusing it or using it or misusing it, whatever the case may be. You better be very careful because that's like alcohol. Why they call them spirits, folks.
Yep.
That's why they call them spirits. You got a definite thing going on with that, just like the blood that's used in rituals. Okay, blood is a big thing in the ritual use. Okay, why? It must have definite spiritual properties. Got to.
Oh yeah. And yeah, even last night I was checking on the whole thing on the Ladybird Lake situation. I don't know if you're familiar with that in Texas. A lot of bodies have
Yeah.
been found, and they think there
Mhm.
might be a serial unaliver, and possibly authorities having something to do with it. So it's very, very dark, and people being possibly drugged and stuff, and getting in these different mind states, and a lot of them ending up in water and dead, and yeah, it's just very bizarre. And even if it's just human activity, I think once again it's these beings that are going for this blood and stuff like that. Not only blood, but they'll go for your money and anything of value, but anything of value in your body as well, and yeah, it's super weird. And then also the harvesting of organs is, I know, is a thing, big thing. There's a black market of that as well, and it's like, well,
Well,
who's demanding this stuff, and so it makes you wonder. Um, yeah, scary stuff. But yeah, going back to the interdimensional, those energies, I think that's a big one there. If you want to talk about you know different realms and stuff like that. I think it's definitely happening on that level, on the energetic and spiritual level.
mhm.
And yeah, it's a scary thing, So we gotta, again, that's part of the work that I mentioned is like having to deal with these uh, feelings and it may possibly attachments. I believe most of us probably have attachments that we need to deal
Well,
with,
too,
and
BD, and I agree with you on that, definitely. And you hear so much about like Bathory. She was after the young blood. She thought it would make rejuvenate her, and it does. Science has found out that the younger the blood, the more rejuvenating quality it has to it. And of course, if you infuse this with fear and trauma, whatever, great emotional stuff, your emotions, and being out there in Hollywood land, you know what I'm talking about. Your emotions are manipulated by movies and the scary music in the movie. The monsters coming. They're manipulating your emotions with music. Music is that way, and that's the way this stuff can do. It can manipulate your emotions. And when you manipulate someone's emotions and you start messing around with them, you can control that person to a certain extent. See, and that's what vampires, reptilians, and all these guys are real big on. What we talked about earlier, control. That's what they're looking for.
yeah, and we're
You agree?
talking movies. Also, that's I think another way to be able to get some of these attachments. Watching these scary movies or certain type of content could get you some possessions or attachments, like I said, or hitchhikers, if you want to call them. But yeah, so we got to be very careful of what we're consuming and how we're consuming it and how we're digesting it. And yeah, so it's very, very odd, because you try to explain this to someone, and yeah, there's these different realms. Some people call it the spirit realm and stuff, and yeah, to be able to explain that to someone who really has no idea, it seems like you're crazy. But yeah, no, I think this is all real, and we're learning and seeing. You know, a lot of us are seeing that it is. You know, and some of us could really see it. Some
Well,
people like say they could read auras and stuff like that,
yeah.
and I don't know if I could do that, but I could tell with certain people nowadays. I'm like,
I've
oh yeah,
seen that. I've actually, I don't know if you have. I've actually seen people's auras a little bit.
nice,
Not a whole lot. Not what I put it this way. I can't control it. I just see it once in a while. Once in a while, I kind of get this takedown on it. Some people can control it. They can see it when they want to.
yeah,
They have that psychic ability to do that. But anyway, what I was going to say, somebody asked me this the other day. Since you're out there in Hollywood land, we'll talk about this a moment. Why is all this stuff coming out in movies and scripts and all this stuff, TV shows and all this stuff? And I just want to see what you think about what I'm about to say here next. Um, I feel without a doubt that this is the disclosure, but I don't think it's controlled disclosure by the people that's doing it. I think it is coming out because it's kind of preordained to do so. I think in the scripture, God says, there's nothing that's not secret that won't be revealed. And I think that's what we're seeing happening. I don't think they've got any control over it. I think it's, sort of the grace of God. He's letting us see these things or letting
De-
us find out about these things. Don't you believe
definitely.
that?
Yeah, definitely. But then I do believe that there's a certain level of control that the humans, want to have,
Yeah.
or you know, whatever the big corporations and the big billionaires are doing. I feel like they're giving us this show, but yet at the same time we know who's really in control. So yeah, we get the bits of truth, and especially if you're walking on that path and hopefully attracting that light. Yeah, you'll see that there's something else in control there. So yeah, I don't know, but I do feel like yeah, there is a big level of control being put with spells,
I,
you could even
I,
call it.
I don't think they're just sitting around saying, "Hey, we're going to put this out next" or something like that. I don't think a lot of it's intentional. That's what I mean. There's definitely control over it to a certain extent, but I don't think a lot of it's not. Some of it may be intentional, but most of it I don't think is intentional in that respect. But it's got to come out. Whatever eventually it's got to come out that way. But don't look for them to voluntarily disclosure. Like we had an interesting thing down. I don't know if you got a chance to see that, where they showed that Hellfire missile hitting that orb. They showed. I don't know if you heard about this, but they had a
Yeah, yeah,
big
yeah.
meeting.
I heard about it. Yes.
The Hellfire missile bounces off of that orb like it's nothing. And that guy sitting there for the Air Force says, "We got nothing that will do that with a Hellfire missile." You know, That was not intentional on their part, though. I guarantee it was not intentional. That just come out that way. But this guy, he had a lot. He said, "I got more than this. I got more to show you than this." So we're all waiting to see that, definitely. But it's going to come out because we already been promised that. That was a God-given promise. God. I'm not going to get into that tonight, but God has created certain spiritual laws, BD. He has created certain laws and as a metaphysicist, I've seen these. I need to write them all down one day. It might take me a while, but it would make a great book. The spiritual laws of God. What the spiritual laws of this universe we live in. And one of those spiritual laws is eventually everything's going to come out somehow or other, And I believe that without a doubt. And I believe that's a little bit, we're just seeing a little bit of that right now because I think it's like a bottleneck kind of a thing going on here. You know what I mean? It's bottleneck for a while, but one day that bottleneck may widen out more. But I think we're seeing that, and I don't think Hollywood's doing it intentionally to a certain extent. I think it's just they're part of the plan and they don't know it. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think. Well, yeah. Again, it's on different levels. I think there's some that
Yeah.
know, there's some that don't know. I think you were kind of explaining it a little bit ago, that it's kind of almost like up to it's individually. Maybe it's not. I don't know. It's weird. Sometimes it feels like if it's a big cabal, and I'm sure there is, but on many levels that yeah, I feel like it isn't. It's weird, but then at the end, I think I've been hearing more about Satan's little season. I think that's a big
Oh yeah,
thing. Right there
yeah.
is that yeah, we all know who's behind all this dark stuff at the end of it. And I believe there is yeah, we hear about it. You talk about it, and so just like there is the Lord Almighty Creator, and yeah, there's Satan, or call it whatever you'd like, but yeah, that is it's
Well, my friend, they
a
weaponize
thing.
everything. They weaponize everything, so they certainly will weaponize secrets too. I guarantee. I'm sure they can do that too. Absolutely.
Yeah, and earlier you mentioned like Crowley and Parsons and stuff, and again, they were occultists and tapping into these other realms and some of them dealing with certain beings to get
Oh
some of
yeah.
this technology or information. And so once again, yeah, it seems like they were tapping into this other side, this other dimension, if you want to call it. And I want to get into that because I've been talking about it a whole lot because just right here in Pasadena, California, we have the NASA JPL, the Parsons building, and there's whole lot of history there with Jack Parsons and all that, and some of those whatchamacallit, those places are still there. And so I'd like to go do a little filming and put a little something together having to do with that, and maybe going and visiting some of these places. And
Well,
one of them is actually it's called Devil's Gate Dam, and that's where they were like blowing up rockets and
I sit
stuff like that.
around. I sit
And
around thinking about this a lot. I sit around thinking about this a lot, BD, and probably say, Dennis, don't hurt yourself now. But anyway, I sit around thinking a lot about this, okay? And it just keeps coming back to that, BD. There's got to be portals of some sort, some kind of interdimensional stuff going on with that. It's got to be. What other explanation could you come up with that's going to fit the bill? You know, I was taught that when it comes to scientific endeavor, you always go with what is the most likely formula thing going on. Okay, whatever that may be, you go with what's most likely. In other words, what stacks up with the empirical evidence more. That's what you go with. You know, that's where you look for your clues. That's where you go and experiment with whatever the situation. It's just like when you go to look for Bigfoot. Okay, you're not going to go usually most of the time, going to go way out there somewhere that you've never heard any report on Bigfoot. You're going to usually go to the hot area, you know, where it's been, or he's been sighted, or maybe you've seen him, whatever. You always go back to that because you got more of a likelihood of seeing him again where he has been before, you know? And that makes perfect scientific sense when you think about it. And that's what these things are. You always go with what, and that's where it comes down. When it comes down to portals, interdimensional, whatever name you want to give them, I keep coming back to that. My clues and everything, they keep leading me by the patterns lead me to that. And a lot of people say, I don't know about that. How could you ignore it? You know, what do you think?
yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah, it's very very odd. I mean, and then still, I mean, there's people that'll have trouble with that. And but yeah, no, I see, like you said, patterns. There's patterns, and yeah, if you could pick up those patterns, you'll start to see a bigger picture. And again, the bigger picture doesn't look too good a lot of the times. But yeah, so there's got to be someone out there doing some good things and opening up some good. There's got to where the good portals at. That's what I want to
I've
know.
had
I
a lot
want
of
to
people
open.
ask me that. I've had a lot of people ask me that over the years. I'm sure you have been too. If you do a little research in Bigfoot and Dogman and stuff like that. People say, well, where can I go see him at? Where can I go? I said, well, wherever he's been seen before, it's a good idea to go there again. That makes perfect sense when you think about it. But and that's the way it goes with portals and stuff like that. Wherever there's been activity of that, that's where you need to go investigate it. And just like my incident, my own incident with Bigfoot, and how he disappeared. I told you about that before. Just was there 1 minute and just gone the next. I've never seen anything disappear like that, except a vampire girl ran into one time, but that's another story. But anyway, I mean, that's what boggles my mind. It's got to be something like that going on. What else can you come up with? Well, there's no big hole unless aliens didn't pick him up, as far as I knew. I know they didn't go that way. Uh, so you got to wonder, what's going on with that, and that's why people need to investigate this. That's why people like you out in the field, you're looking for this stuff and all that stuff. You out there actively. That's why it's so important. You can hunt from your armchair or you can put boots on the ground, you know. And you're going to get more out of the boots on the ground, folks, okay, than you're going to get from the armchair. There comes a certain point where you got to get up out of the armchair and go look for yourself, you know. And that's what's so very important. You know what I'm talking about. You're a researcher. You've done this for a long time. You know what I'm saying. And that's what you got to do, especially when it comes to things like portals and stuff like that that may be involved in this. You got to keep an eye out for that, you know?
Oh yeah. And
I
I
take
think
a
also
compass
even
with me all the
what's that?
time. Keep an eye on that compass, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing we didn't even get into too much. There even here, LA, of course. I'm sure on all your major big cities that there's groups or cults of vampire
Oh, yeah.
whatever you want to call them, cruise gangs. What do we call them? Groups.
Mhm.
And so it's a thing. There's people that are into that and they drink the blood and then there's different levels of it as well. But I think even on the minor levels, if they're like consuming blood and stuff like that, I think they're tapping in. They're tapping into something. You talked about it, being intoxicating and stuff. I think it's very very true. And so even on that level, they're tapping themselves into something else. That other side again. And so yeah, it's happening on many levels. And yeah, I'll be definitely wearing
You know,
some garlic braids here soon.
a lot of people don't know this, but some of the motorcycle gangs were deep into Satanism and stuff, man.
Oh yeah.
They were deep into occult stuff. Yeah, a lot of
Oh
people
yeah.
don't know that. Yeah, and it wasn't only the Nazis, folks. Okay, it was
Yeah.
it was some other people doing this too as well. And
Yeah.
listen to this. It blows your mind when you think about it. There's even been evidence that some PTA groups have done this stuff, folks. Think about that a minute. That's freaky. But yeah, when you talk cults, you go deep into the underground, but you definitely go into a lot of more areas than you think possible. Um, there's a lot more cult activity going on, occultic
Definitely.
and cult activity, both together, than people realize, And that's why people like you, I warn them, we've talked about it before. When you're out in the woods, be very careful of your surroundings. If you walk up on something like that looks like an altar or something looks like there's been something going on, you need to vacate those premises immediately because those places are being watched and you will lose your life if you try to if you threaten their secrecy very quickly they will take care of you, okay? And they watch these places are sort of, I'm going to say sacred, but it's a loose term here, okay? But these places are kind of like that to them, and you got to be very, and that's another thing, I talk, and I was thought about you the other day when I remembered it. I talked to a game warden one day, a long time ago, a game warden, and most of them are not real forthcoming, but he was pretty forthcoming about it. And I said, does it bother you when you go out in the woods at night and stuff like that, or Bigfoot or Dogman or something might be out there? He said, no, really, I'm more worried about humans than I am anything else. And that's a big factor you got to remember, folks, when you go out in the woods. BD knows what I'm talking about here. You never know what you're going to walk up onto, and I'm not talking about just cryptids here, okay? Because there's a lot of weird, freaky stuff goes on out there in those woods, national parks, and everything, right, buddy?
Definitely. And even right here in our local mountains, I've mentioned a couple times we were warned by we were headed to a campground to do some bigfooting, but
Mm-hmm.
California Highway Patrol was taking care of an accident up there, and they were asking what we were doing up there. We said we were going to camp, and he warned us about cult murders that have been happening in the area. And yeah, that was interesting to hear from from him. You know, so we didn't see that coming, but then again, it doesn't surprise us. So we're very aware that stuff like that, happens. And yeah, no, so eyes peeled, and yeah, but strapping yourself with the armor of the Almighty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. That's one good thing to always never leave home without. Definitely. You don't want to go out without that. But going back to Mount Shasta moment, and I just happened to think about this. There's rumors, of course, of a pyramid being inside of it as well. But there's supposed to be a lot of interdimensional activity going on around Mount Shasta, and I'm sure you've heard of that. But also, you've got a lot of cryptid activity. You've got a lot of cult activity associated with it. You got a lot of religious cults and stuff that go there. You got a whole menagerie of stuff there on that mountain, which is why I said if I ever get out there, we're definitely gonna see that place. But
Oh yeah, yeah. They
um,
started the what was the I Am movement. That's a whole
mm-hmm.
thing there. Yeah, a lot of they had the harmonic convergence there. I think it was in the mid
Oh yeah,
'90s or something. And
yeah.
yeah, just a lot happening up there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's sort of a new age mecca for a lot of these weird, weird belief systems that go on around there.
Oh yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. And I don't get too deep into that. I mean, I do my thing my way, and maybe some it may seem like new agey, but no, I don't. I'm not hardcore. I see some people that are very hardcore, on into it and on that stuff. But yeah, no, there's certain things I may do, and there's a lot of things I don't do. But yeah, I don't. Uh, yeah, you got to be careful. Even though with some of those people may seem nice and inviting and stuff, you just got to be careful with everyone around
I'm
you.
gonna tell you what,
Um,
I'm gonna get into the real strange stuff here now, Big D. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna get into the strange stuff here. What if you do have such a thing as interdimensional vampires? Let's say they're coming from somewhere else out there, Could they be the ones probably that are running the cabal, the Illuminati, and all that? What if they've come from some other place and they're doing that kind of stuff? And it's not that far out to think about because if you look at, let's say, for chance, look at fallen angels and stuff like that, they're coming from another dimension. Okay, I mean, where they come from is a spiritual dimension. I believe without a doubt. I have seen it with my own eyes, and I had a visitation here one night. I have to tell you about that freaky thing. Anyway, uh, I believe without doubt that in this universe you have different dimensions, of course, and one of those dimensions is definitely a spiritual dimension that these things that come from. And then you have and I know you've heard of this term before, liminal places. That's the in between dimensions. Who knows what's there? We don't even. I mean, nobody knows. That's wide open. They could be anything. These liminal in between places between the dimensions. But that's very much like the movie Constantine. You remember Constantine?
mhm.
Hell in Constantine was just like one step over. It was this world, but it was one step over in another dimension. A horrible dimension, nevertheless, but it was a dimension, okay? And you see this talked about, and I'm not going to get too deep into this now. We'll have to do a show on this sometime. There's a lot of things, places mentioned in the Bible, liminal places like this, dimensional places, like the pit of the abyss, and of course hell, Hades, or whatever name you want to give it, heaven, and all this, And the book of Enoch talks about 5, 6, and 7 heavens, and all these different things. I believe what they're talking about here are definitely dimensions. Okay, but they might be in the more spiritual realm, you know. And when you come to Mount Shasta, according to legend, a lot of those realms converge there, you know. And like I said earlier, this sort of interdimensional intersection kind of a thing going on. And, you know, one of those weirdest things of all, and there have been actual vampire reported cases on Mount Shasta. Everything's been reported there one time. But hey, you remember the Watchers? That's weird too. Remember that? The Watchers? The big tall things that just stand around and watch, you know, and people warn you don't look at them, you know,
Yes.
don't pay attention to them. Yeah, I mean, come on. You want to explain to everybody what the Watchers look like?
Well, I believe I forget what part of. There's a particular story that I've heard of these like shadow beings that overlook some sort of ridge or cliff, and it's out of California. I believe it's Central California. Maybe someone in the
Yeah,
chat knows, but I forget the exact time. I should know this. Um, and it's not San Luis Obispo, but it's something like that, where these beings that, and I believe they're called the Whisperers also, something along those
yeah.
lines. But it's reminding me of what I believe you're mentioning here, and I'm sure that that's not the only place, but yeah, no, it's. There's also the talks
I've
of
done a
the
lot. I've
Shasta
done a lot
being
of research.
a
Yeah,
passageway to inner Earth, Agartha, Shangri-La, all these inner Earth terms and places. And I think it's very possible. There's people talk about UFOs going inside of volcanoes and coming out of volcanoes, and I'm sure it's happened there before too. So yeah, it's yeah, something's going on inside that mountain. Seems like, and that's what the talks are. Is that yeah, it's things are happening inside of the mountain also. These different the Lemurians come up. Yeah, so much from there, and yeah, hopefully I'll be checking that place out soon. I usually pass by when I'm in the area. I've spent time there. There's so much more I would love to explore there, and hopefully it'll be with you, Doc.
well, they say the best time fishing is mostly seen in mountain ranges in California. Most of them, Mount Shasta's one, I think several others. But they say the best day that you can encounter these on, like days when the clouds are down on the mountain, like when it's kind of cloudy, foggy, they say that's the best time to encounter them. It's
I
not,
would.
when you have the Santa Ana winds, and we're gonna talk about them in a minute because they've got some superstitious stuff attached to them too. But the Santa Ana winds is not the day you want to look for them. Supposedly, when it's real windy, it's supposed to be still sort of cloudy, foggy like day that you can encounter these things. And because
Hmm.
of that, some people swear that this is an optical illusion.
Okay.
And you may have heard about this. They it's an optical illusion. It's really your own shadow being cast back on something and all that. But um, we do know that shadows are only cast with what? Light has to be behind you to really cast a shadow away from you. You know what I'm talking about. And that don't happen with a lot of these watcher sightings. That's not what's going on with that. You can't blame it on the shadow, okay? Because that's not when, and a lot of this happens late in the day or very early and right, I call it the rosy time, right before dawn, or right before sunset is when these appearances supposedly happen. So you can't blame that on sunlight a lot of times. You know what I'm saying? You can't say, oh, it's a shadow doing that. So I believe what you're dealing with may be interdimensional beings of some sort, definitely associated with that, you know?
Yeah, very very possible. Why not?
Well, more water and dew in the air would be a conductor like for something like. We got to remember something, BD, and a lot of people out there listening tonight may not realize this. With water, I want to tell you this. Listen to what I'm about to tell you. Water is not only a conductor of electricity, it's supposed to be also a spiritual conductor as well. Absolutely. Look how much weird stuff goes on around water. Okay. I mean, it's definitely some type of spiritual conductive thing going on with that. And if there's more moisture in the air, And I've studied this. Actually, some of the best time to go investigating for ghosts and stuff is that time I just mentioned, late at night, early in the morning, especially if there's a thunderstorm, a lot of electricity in the air, a lot of moisture in the air, like a foggy day or something. That's a perfect time for you to encounter things of a spiritual nature. Put it that way, because I believe without doubt, water is a conductor for that kind of stuff. Even water that's in a stream or creek next to you where you're at,
Oh yeah.
can be the same way, not just water in the air.
Yeah, well, we were in water in our mother's womb before we came through the portal.
Yep. Yeah. We're born in that. Yeah. Well, among some other body fluid, yeah. But yeah, that's the way that goes. That we are part of that. We are so much water. I think we're more water than anything else. And here's one more thing to think about. And I think you and I talked about this one time before. Water retains a memory. A lot of people don't realize that water actually has a memory, just like you and I do. It has a memory, and that's another perfect conductor for spirituality. Would be something that has a memory like attached to it, definitely. And that's why I call a lot of ghosts and supposed things. I call them echoes of time. It's what really basic what you're looking at. They may not interact with you, they're just like watching something out of a picture or a movie, and what you're really basically doing in some instances with residual haunting, you're looking back through time at a certain thing that happened at that, because there's a memory still there of that, and that's freaky to think about. But memories don't just exist in your mind. They're also a tangible thing to a certain extent. Look at Harry Potter. He had memories in a bottle. Remember that? You could take your memories out, put it in a bottle. Of course, he had a wand for that, folks. I don't have a wand. But anyway, that's weird to think about, BD. Memory could be
Yep.
substantial. Yeah.
Yeah. So talk nice to your water before you drink it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Cheers to that.
I'm drinking some flavored water. But yeah, I mean, well, water is life. Water is life. What is what's the Bible called? The river of life, It's water. It's something that symbolizes eternity, spiritual out in eternity. That's what it is. Absolutely. So, you gotta wonder a lot of times, that's what I've told a lot of people. And, I'm sure you go by that rule too. Whenever I was out looking for Bigfoot, I always go to water. He's got to come there sooner or later. Everything sooner or later comes to water. Okay. So if you got a creek or a stream, that's what you stake out, because you're going to you'll see more wildlife there. I guarantee you that. You know. But you got to pick a good place out. You can't just walk up and sit down next to a stream. You got to have a good place that's kind of clear and you can see. I like to look down on something like that, not be in the middle of it. You know what I'm saying? That way you kind of see everything going on around it. That's the perfect advantage point for something like that. But when
Oh
it
yeah.
comes to things of a supernatural nature, I think they occur around water too, water sources more and all that. So water is very important, definitely. Water is life, yeah. And life is water. That's the way that goes. Think about all the life that's in water too. Look at the
Yeah.
germs and all that stuff. It is a living thing,
Oh yeah.
without
And
doubt.
it's interesting because we mentioned earlier that also the blood is the life force, but yet yeah, life is water. So some sort of yeah,
Mhm.
what's going on
Yep.
there with that?
Oh yeah, yeah. Makes sense. Makes perfect sense when you think about it. Absolutely. But to me, that's where I would definitely stay out of place if I'm going to look. If we ever do any Bigfoot hunting, we'll be heading to a creek out there somewhere or something,
Oh yeah, no, I got some places for you to check out whenever you're ready to do that, and there is a nice water source nearby. So if you'd like to get baptized at our Bigfoot hotspot, you're welcome to. It's a
There
nice
you go.
watering hole, but
These two. BD's Bigfoot tour. There you
There you go.
might make some money on that, man. We'll
Yeah.
put
So
that in
anyway, yeah,
marketing.
no, I had a great time this evening. I don't know how much you wanted to keep. I mean, I could keep rocking and rolling with you, but yeah, no. As far as the interdimensional vampire stuff, that's who came to mind was Count Saint Germain, and yeah, I'm super
Yeah.
excited that you mentioned Mount Shasta. I'm like, all right, we're on the same frequency there, so I think it made it for a good conversation. But yeah, no, I'm definitely going to be doing some more homework on the vampiric interdimensional stuff. I'm sure there's more stuff out there. Hopefully, someone in chat shared a little something, and yeah,
Well,
hopefully we all. I learned a little something, so hopefully everyone else did as well. So
this is the way I look at it, BD. There's some things out there that's kind of existing off of us. They're parasitic. They kind of, they exist off of us and our way of life, the things that we do. Vampires definitely would be that. Reptilians would be fit that bill as well. Certain other entities may do that. And if we're that important, they definitely would be coming from other dimensions, some of them. They're coming from a spiritual dimension. A lot of people do not realize the vampires you see in the Hollywood movies are completely different from what they really truly are in real life. They are more of spiritual type beings, just like skinwalkers are, just like witches can do and stuff like that. These are spiritual things connected to the spiritual aspects of this universe. Okay, just like you and I are, and like what Jesus said in the Bible, you know, uh, you're born of water and what spirit. That's what we are. When you think about it, that's pretty tight on that. That's the formula. Water, we are water and spirit. Although we're physical too, but we have water and spirit as well. And that's interesting when you think about it, that these things would be connected. So water is another dimension, really. You know, it is another dimension. Once you go into the water, you're in a different world. You're in a different thing altogether. Just like going in outer space, or whatever the situation is, or going into some other dimension you don't know what it is. Okay, you're still going into a different world, like altogether. And so all bets are off and stuff like that. So who knows? Some of these things may be coming definitely from other dimensions, and they are definitely spiritual. They really are coming from spiritual dimensions of some sort, whatever that may be. And I have actually seen this with my own eyes. I won't get into that tonight, but I have seen them transition from spiritual into physical. Okay. I couldn't see the spiritual because I'm not in the spiritual, okay, but I could see the physical results of it. It's weird to talk about. But anyway, I could see that transition. So if that's possible, they could certainly transition back the other way too. I mean, you can go from physical to spirit. You and I can't do that, but there are certain things we can do that opens doorways to that stuff. That would help us maybe, and I'm going to say, maybe it's not a doorway, maybe it's a window we're looking through, okay, into some of the things. Maybe there's certain instances we do that. Sometimes intentional, sometimes not intentional, okay? That's the way that works. But I think it is very, very definitely probable, put it that way, that these things like that happen. And we've got to remember something, BD. This is a whole lot bigger and more stranger universe than we ever thought before. You know what I mean? The more we learn, the more wild it gets. The more it blows our minds on that. But it's good. It's good we got people like you to, investigate this with us, okay? I appreciate you being
likewise.
here tonight.
And one more last like different realm and vampire thing that comes to mind, and I don't know, maybe some of you might get this out there, but I'm starting to get visual thoughts. Who knows? Maybe tonight I might have the count from Sesame Street when I sleep is probably going to be counting sheep for me.
Yeah, that's that old question: do robots dream of electric sheep? That's another question. But anyway, but next time we get together, we will probably got to discuss the cults a little bit. That's fascinating stuff. We'll
Yeah,
have to get into the cults. Yeah, I think
let's
you
do
may
it.
have a few out there.
Yeah,
You
well,
may have a few.
California, we got all types out here. We got tons of UFO cults and others. So
Yeah.
let's get into it.
We'll have to do a show on that one now. It's a smorgasbord of cults, definitely. And yeah,
Yeah.
as I'm an ex-police officer, so I was sent to school, one time to learn about that, the rituals and cults and stuff that you may come upon. And there's one whole section of criminology which deals with ritualistic murder, folks. Yeah, believe it or not. And of course, you had people out there like Charles Manson and all. I was telling somebody this the other night, and it blew a lot of people's minds. I'm going to repeat it again tonight. When the Charles Manson thing went down, I was a young man when that happened, but I followed it very closely. The Manson family thing. And I there's one quote that Charles made. Okay, Charlie made, and I was going to leave it with everybody tonight. This is what he said. And this is freaky when you think about it. This is what he said. It says, "You may lock my body up, but my spirit will walk your streets every night."
Oh yeah.
There you go, folks. That's Charles
Yeah.
Manson. Yep, that's wild. And you know
Yeah.
what,
Look.
though? If anybody was ever demonically possessed, that man was.
Oh
Definitely.
man. Yeah. No, he's out of Cali. Well, he was here, California. So yeah, we got a ton of that. Take your pick.
Well, have you ever been to the Spa Ranch out there?
No, I haven't. There's a lot of places I haven't been. No, I have not.
I would love to go there. If I ever go out there, definitely out to California, I want to go to the spa if they'll let you in. On it used to be part of a movie set too. I think they filmed some movies there as well. But that was where Charles Manson and his family was living for a while. But the
Okay.
interesting thing about it is that you talking about a haunted place out there, it would definitely have to be haunted because they say there's bodies out there they haven't found yet.
So that's probably up on Laurel Canyon, is it? Maybe.
Yeah, I think
I
it
don't
was
know.
Laurel Canyon. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, we got to get up
And
there. There's some, a lot of UFO reports. There's some weird stuff going up there.
oh yeah. Well, they
Yeah.
say there's some. They say that they're, besides this, I call them weird. The skylights. You got what we call land lights. You got strange lights and stuff that are seen on land, which may be tied into UFO. We have to do a show on that one night too, because that's fascinating
Yeah.
stuff too, man. That's neat. Anyway, they say that they have reported weird looking lights being seen around the Spa Ranch area where it was at. And
Wow.
a lot of people didn't know if it was just, I don't think UFO connected, but more like, ghost connected type
Uh
thing
huh.
going on. Yeah. That's weird to think about. That would be if you ever got a chance to investigate, be a very
Yeah, we got.
interesting investigation, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's get a little gas money together and hit the road.
Yeah. There you go. Absolutely. But, he spent some time, Charles Manson spent a little time in Death Valley. He
Oh,
lived in an
yeah.
old school bus in Death Valley. There's an old school bus, and they say for years that bus you could go to that bus and see where he painted on the inside of it and all kinds of stuff. I think it's
Wow.
been hauled off by now, I guess probably. But I would love to have seen that. That's freaky. Think about that. It was still there for many years after all that.
Yeah, a lot of mysteries out there as well. Death Valley. Um,
Oh yeah. They
where?
had the moving rock. Remember the moving rocks would move
Yes.
and they
Yeah, yeah,
could
yeah.
figure out.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
like to check that out. Although they say they debunked
Yeah.
what it was, but I think there's something going on there. It's a little bit of
Well, they say
strangeness.
that the wind was doing it, but I don't. I've never seen a wind could move rocks. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe they can. Maybe it can. Anyway, this has been great, my friend. I always
Thank
always
you.
have a great time when we get you on here, and I appreciate you. Want to tell everybody where
Yeah,
they
no, I
can find
appreciate.
you? You got your own channel, right?
What's that?
You got your own channel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Want to tell
Yeah, my
everybody where
channel.
you? Yeah. What's the
Yeah,
name
so
of it?
it's a Bigfoot dwarf, or my handle will
Mhm.
be at Brown Dwarf
Oh,
four
oh,
two
okay.
zero zero. And so yeah, it should be pretty easy to find that way, or just look up Bigfoot dwarf. It should pop up there. and I've been working on editing some videos recently. Hopefully, soon here we'll have them out. I got the
There it is.
computer
That's
back.
it.
Yeah, thank you, Chi.
There we go.
Yeah, we got
Right.
the computer, the laptop back up and running. So, I'm working on getting some things edited and put together and share it out there here soon. So, yeah, stay tuned, and it's exciting. It was a too long treat, 2 long week trip up in tree
Yeah.
country, up in the redwoods. So yeah, there's some content there for all of us. So yeah, hopefully y'all come and check it out. And again, thank you for everyone who's been supporting. And thank you again, Doc, Midwest Night Watchers. Much love, and much love to everyone out there as well.
All right. Well, appreciate it, my friend. It's always good to have you here. Good. This is my connection to the L.A. folks. Okay, the city of Los Angeles. He's got a grip on it. Definitely. He
Yeah, your
knows what's going on.
Cali Connect.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I appreciate it, my friend, and it's always great to have you on here. We have a fun time, and you stay crazy out there, but not too crazy.
Yes,
Okay, don't want
much
you to get
love.
arrested. But anyway, I appreciate it, and uh, let you keep us abreast if you get any more Bigfoot evidence and all that. Share it with us. We'll put it
Oh
on here
yeah.
for you. All
Yeah.
right.
It'll be coming up in these videos that I'm talking about here. So I'm rushing. I'm not rushing, but I'm pushing myself to get it out there. I haven't done
There you go.
editing like this before, especially on a laptop. So I'm excited to be working that way. And we're trying to, switch a few gears. So I'm excited about what I've got together so far. And yeah, there'll be some interesting things to look at as far as Bigfoot and up in the Bluff Creek area. So I'm excited.
All right. We'll be looking forward to that then too. I appreciate that so much for your support there, my friend. It very much appreciated. I appreciate you. And we'll thank all of you in here tonight. And I'll go ahead and let this fella slip on out if you want to. I will catch you later, my friend. Take care. Great guy there, great guy. Mr. BD, Bigfoot Dwarf. And it's always good when we have him on. We always have a fun time with him. We're ready to close out here tonight. I want to thank you all for being here. It's been a great show. And um, hopefully we got some more guests lining up pretty soon. And yeah, it's been a very strange day, definitely, and a very strange week. And you know, just share a few minutes with you here. I definitely, think we need to start controlling ourselves a little better, and start looking out for each other more. We need more love in our hearts, my friend. Absolutely, we need more love in this world for each other and other people, and try to get more understanding going on here, definitely. And I think the world needs that too, a whole lot better. But we definitely we've had some very strange times around going on with us. Some very weird stuff going on. So be careful. It's a good idea. I'm just thinking for a while, good idea maybe not to get in too many big crowds, try to stay out of crowds as much as possible, but keep an eye on your six, definitely. But if any of you have a chance, you might want to check me out tomorrow at high noon. I will be doing Skinwalker Serenade with our good friend on Aquarius Rising Africa, Chantel Mayberg. We'll be doing Skinwalker Serenade. You don't want to miss this one. It's going to be wild. And I'm going to be talking about witch doctors too, by the way. So check that out. That's tomorrow at high noon on Aquarius Rising, South Africa. Okay. And also, you might want to check out my good friend at Supernatural Truth, the preacher from the Black Lagoon, DDoS and Red Pill. Red Pill Preacher had a fantastic show tonight with my good friend Melissa Dawn Harris. She is also in our network. She has a channel called Velvet Bite Radio. You need to check her out, show her some love, and I'm going to have her very soon as a guest on here if nothing happens. And you will love this girl. I'm crazy about her. She knows all about vampires. She's definitely got a handle on one of my favorite subjects. Absolutely. So I was on her show. If you missed that, then it's also in my library. Okay. So check it out. We had a fantastic show, and that was a great show tonight with her too. I was in for some of it, not a whole lot, but I was in on for some of it. So it was great. So go check it out on Supernatural Truth. Okay. Show them some love. Please show some love to my good friend Gerald Fountain, Midwest Night Watchers. Okay. He has a store. Check his store out. Okay. He has some great merchandise. Please check out my good friend, my buddy, um, Jessica Jones at the Cryptid Huntress channel. Check her channel out, and her store is War Woman Goods. Check it out. Show her some love. And check out, she had a great show today with my good friend Barry Littleton. If you missed it, go check it out. And they're all part of the network, along with Heidi Pop and BMR, and also my good friend Lord Star Fox. Please check out his channel as well. But I appreciate you all for being here tonight. It's been fantastic. And I will, the Lord willing, the creeks don't rise. Friday night, we will be back with some movie reviews, talk about that book a little bit more, and we got some other things we'll get going here. Who knows what news we will have to talk about. I will talk some more about the flying saucer thing that was going on with the UFOs. We're going to talk about that some more as well. So be here Friday night for Paranormal Point of View at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Hunting the Shadows YouTube podcast channel and agency. Yes, the agency is now open, folks. Absolutely. We're wide open. But I appreciate you all so very much for being here. It's been great. It's been fun. Take care of yourselves. Keep an eye on that 6. Your head on the swivel now, okay? And stay out of those large crowds for a while. And if you need me for anything, don't forget I am here for you, okay? Whatever the situation. I'm here for you. Reach out to me, okay? You're not here alone. You're not in. I'm in your corner. Definitely, I'm in your corner, okay? I'm gonna tell you what. You're my friends, and I take that very seriously, okay? And I'm loyal to the end. All right. You can. That's one thing you can count on, okay? Absolutely. But I appreciate all of you. Love every one of you. Take care of yourselves. God bless each and every single one of you. And I will be praying for your protection tonight. Okay, so take care until we get back together again. Don't forget Lux and Tenebris, light in darkness. Hold the line, my friends. Talk faith, not fear. And until we get back together again, Godspeed, and I will see you in the shadows. I stand amid the roar of a surf-tormented shore, and I hold within my hand grains of the golden sand. How few, yet how they creep through my fingers to the deep. While I weep, oh God, can I not grasp them with a tighter clasp? Oh God, can I not save one from the pitiless wave? Is all that we see or sing but a dream within a dream? You can support Hunting the Shadows at our Patreon, patreon.com, Hunting the Shadows Podcast. Also, our memberships are open on the Hunting the Shadows YouTube podcast channel. Please also support our Facebook groups, the American Institute for Paranormal Research, Southeastern Cryptid Investigations, Legend Trackers Society, Highway to High Strangeness, Monstrum Venators R.Us, Agency of the Arcane, and Hunting the Shadows Agency. You can contact Dennis Carroll at denniswcarroll.com.